Hello everyone and welcome to my review of Shameless's finale. It's a series finale, it's a show's finale. There's not going to be any more, very sad. So I'm going to be going over how each character ended up in Shameless. I definitely have some thoughts about how each character should have ended up. I think we all do. And this is my personal opinion, this is not like the verdict on how they should have ended up. This is just how I think they should have handled it and how they should have maybe gone about doing a better season 11, a better ending to the show. I want to preface by saying that I do think that the creators and producers and writers, they did what they could given the circumstances. I feel like they probably had some plans that didn't come to fruition. And I do think that they were able to handle making a show and finishing a show during COVID. You know, obviously they had contracts and stuff like that they had to live up to. And I do feel like it must have been such a stressful place to be in. You know, you have this show that you've been working on for the past 10 years, 11 years, and, you know, not being able to give like a proper conclusion to it or the conclusion that you were waiting for. It's going to be frustrating for everyone. It's going to be frustrating for the creators, for the fans, and either way, this is just my opinion. This is just how I would have done it. So let's start off by talking about Frank Gallagher! Obviously the patriarch of the Gallagher family. I feel like Frank would have eventually, you know, this is the storyline that they had in mind, and I don't really have any issues with how they handled his storyline and, you know, the end to his character, because I feel like it was very fitting. You know, having him pass away at the end, it's what we've kind of been expecting since the beginning, sort of like ever since it's kind of been established that Frank is like immortal. You know, he's been through so much shit and survived, and so many drugs and years of alcoholism.
What are we doing in the hospital? One of you have another kid?
You've got dementia. I'm being a drunk, Frank.
I think they did an awesome job of showing how a character can go from, you know, being this immortal kind of being, you know, where, you know, and we kind of saw his more vulnerable side. I mean, there's scenes where you actually like feel emotional and bad for Frank, and seeing him deal with dementia, you know, it was quite an emotional angle that they went with, and I think it was pretty good and it worked really well, and this is what it's been leading up to.
See you around, Frank.
I doubt it.
Now, let's get to, you know, the elephant in the room. They did not show Fiona. They didn't even kind of give her a proper ending. We don't know what happened to her, really. And I think she's mentioned once in the beginning of the next series after she leaves. I think season 10, because she left in season 9 finale, I'm pretty sure. So I think we have like one line of you know, I think it was Debbie mentioning that she spoke to Fiona recently, and she's come up here and there. She's come up here and there over the years, but it's not really been any conclusive information. We don't really know what happened to her after she left, and obviously that's what was missing in the finale. I think she should have definitely showed up when Frank was in the hospital. I don't know if that was what they were planning, and maybe because of, you know, COVID and conflicting issues with traveling and everything, it could have been what they were planning from the beginning, having her be the contact, the emergency contact that was in Frank's file. But obviously they just didn't get around to filming that, and, you know, with COVID it's just really hard, I feel like. So it makes sense that would be the scene when they were planning to show her. I saw some people talking about how she should have showed up and bought the bar at the very end or something like that, but I don't really agree with that. I feel like it would have been just enough. We don't really need to know like specifics, what she's doing, what job she's doing, stuff like that. I feel like it would have been more than enough to know that, you know, to have her show up and have like an emotional moment with Frank or an emotional conversation with Frank, and maybe give him a piece of her mind, or and then ultimately, you know, feeling sorry for her dad, you know, something along those lines. I feel like it would have made complete sense, and it would have been a good kind of conclusion, like a good little note to send her off, or send Frank off in this case. It would have definitely been nice to see her with Jimmy. I think maybe just because the fans would have really wanted that, but I feel like Shameless would have probably gone with the realistic approach that she never really saw Jimmy again, or she just saw him again and chose not to be with him. I feel like maybe that would have been the approach they went with. I don't know, maybe I think I would have liked to see her with Jimmy. So Lip to me is probably the most interesting character, because at least in the very first like 5 seasons, probably he was the most interesting one. Just his storyline of him being, you know, the smart kid in a very rough neighborhood would have been something that they should have pursued more, maybe. Or, you know, I mean, I don't mind how they developed the character and how they kind of showed him like trying to become a better person, and then ultimately like having to deal with his demons of alcoholism and, you know, all the problems that actually run in his family. And just it would have been a nice conclusion to see Lip like probably go into robotics at the end, and they were really close to doing that. And I kind of got excited when I first saw him like approach that house in the end, when he's talking to the guy when he fixes the guy's problem on his computer. They could have literally just changed a couple details, and it would have made that whole scene and Lip's conclusion to his story, it would have been so much better if maybe, you know, same scenario, Lip goes to the house, he's doing deliveries, and he walks in, and instead of being some Bitcoin or transaction problem on the computer, it could have been something like, you know, a robotics problem. I'm not smart enough to come up with a scenario here, but I feel like maybe, you know, he's trying to work on a robot and he doesn't know, this guy who owns a house is trying to work on a robot and he doesn't know how to fix a certain problem, and then Lip coming in, he could have just fixed it for him, and then the guy could have been like, oh, I want you on my team, and, you know, that could have been Lip's new job. He could have been working in robotics because this guy maybe saw his potential and, you know, wanted him on his team. Something like that. It could have been easily done. You know, the guy could have been a tech mogul. They could have easily done that little detail there, and it would have been a much better conclusion than, you know, maybe Lip's gonna invest in some stuff and make some money off of it. And yeah, sure, he's smart enough, but I mean, it's completely different. It's not what he was really about, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I would have liked to see Lip as, you know, taking advantage of the potential that he has, and maybe like, you know, being able to make some money. And they could have just, I mean, they could have wrapped up that storyline of him stealing the bikes and all this and all that, and they could have just completely forgotten about that and just done the whole season could have just been about Lip trying to work his way back into the tech industry or robotics industry or anything like that. Like that would make it more like a full circle and like a kind of like a callback to those first seasons when he really shows an interest. And it's funny because that scene with Lip talking to this guy in his house and fixing his problem, it kind of like gave us a little glimpse of like smart Lip and, you know, season 1 and season 2 Lip, and that's been missing for quite a few seasons. For the fans that have been watching since season 1 and know the story back and forth, you know, they could have done that, and it was a really big missed opportunity that it's a kind of a shame. With Ian, I don't really have any problems. I feel like his storyline made sense. It was probably the most like, I mean, wrapped up storyline by the end. Funny enough, like it was interesting seeing Ian and Mickey, you know, planning for the baby. I feel like maybe this season was kind of like they had a lot of little moments that I could tell they were entirely dedicated to the Gallagher fandom, and I have no problems with that. I mean, it was fine. There was no loose ends really in their storyline. Now things are kind of different with Debbie. I mean, I don't really like Debbie's character, but I feel like that's the point of her character, is to not be liked. Because if you see certain things that she does in certain episodes, you can tell that that's the kind of the point of the character, is to not be liked. And that's no problem with the actress. I think the actress does a good job of making us not like her in a way, or not like the character. And I just think it was a really stupid addition to the show, adding that her new girlfriend or whatever, because it was such a late character. It wasn't even, it was never brought up before. It was never. She was just introduced like two episodes before the finale, or one episode before the finale. Even I think it was last episode, before the last one, that she was introduced. So it's not really something that you would kind of wonder about. I mean, now we're just left wondering what happened to Debbie. Like, is she going to move to Texas with this new character, with this new strange character that I don't even know the name of, honestly? But still, I just think that storyline could have been completely cut out. It didn't add anything, and it's not a likable character. It's not anything. I mean, if they were going to add someone for Debbie to be with, maybe add someone that the fans would have been like, all right, good. That's a nice conclusion. She's with someone now, and whatever. That's nice, I guess. Here's my problem with Carl's storyline, I guess, is that there was a build-up of so many seasons, of Carl going from a hooligan to kind of like becoming an officer, going to the academy, becoming an officer, and then it was only really in this last season that they kind of messed that up. They spent a whole season pretty much trying to like show that Carl isn't meant to be an officer, and he's not good at any of this, and he's always got a problem with each department, and and I know that it comes from a realistic standpoint, because the problems that he had were kind of realistic, I guess, but it's still like, it doesn't fit in. I think that if you're going to get to a point where, okay, Carl's an officer now, he's a policeman, alright, how can we develop on that? I mean, don't develop on it by creating a problem, and then ultimately at the end kind of hinting that he's gonna now own the alibi room. And that kind of brings me to my next problem with the finale, which is the alibi room should have obviously been left or bought by Kermit and Tommy, because Kermit and Tommy have been there since season 1. I mean, we've seen them literally most of the scenes. I know that Tommy had like the construction scene, there's different scenes with them in, but most of the scenes that they have been in are in the alibi room. So wouldn't it have made so much more sense for Kermit and Tommy to like kind of go into partnership or something and owned the alibi room? I really thought that was what they were kind of hinting at, and that's what they were kind of like leaving for the last few minutes of the finale, or not a few minutes, but like kind of like leaving it in the back until we kind of like were wondering who is going to own the alibi room, and that would be the moment that they would actually like own it. I don't know, it would have been very weird. I mean, to me it's very weird to even imagine Carl owning it, because it's not really something that I connect with Carl. It's not really, if anyone, it would have been Frank from the family, but then Frank he's dead, so no. I would have liked to see some characters return. I mean, that was kind of a disappointment as well, because I was kind of hoping that during this last season we would have gotten to see what happened to Karen and Jody, maybe gotten to see what happened to Mandy Milkovich. It's kind of weird thinking, those characters were such a big part of it, and even Sheila, she was probably the funniest character in those first couple seasons. Well, not the funniest, but one of the funniest, and it would have been nice to see her return to, kind of see where she ended at. But if they didn't want to do that, maybe just give us like a couple of lines or something, a couple of just hints at what happened to these characters. But yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I didn't speak about Liam just because I don't really know they didn't really have like, oh, this is what Liam's going to be doing. It's just like, okay, Liam's probably going to be living with Lip, and you know, we don't even know if they sold the house for like to Lip's friend for the 75 grand, or if they decided to keep the house. I don't know. I mean, am I disappointed with the show? No. I mean, I like the show. I love the show. You know, I've watched every single episode multiple times. But I do feel like there's gonna be there's a lot of frustration that comes with a finale like this, and I feel like the least they could do, maybe in the future, they could do an hour special or just a 30-minute special, just wrapping up those little things, and maybe showing us Frank's funeral or something along those lines. That would be a perfect opportunity. I mean, I'm talking post-COVID, because I feel like a lot of these problems, even when it comes to writing, I feel like a lot of these problems probably came down to scheduling shit and working under a strict schedule, and it's not anyone's fault, I guess, in the end. I mean, they could have easily changed a few things and made it better working with what they had, and I'm talking things that they could have literally just changed who. They could have changed that guy that Lip went to. That house could have been a tech mogul's house. They could have changed into making Tommy and Kermit by the bar, which would have made absolute sense. And then, they could have completely cut out that girlfriend storyline with Debbie. A few seasons ago, they could have just kept Liam, instead of going to public school, keeping him in, the academy, and making him, be the kind of like the golden goose of the family, I guess. But I don't know. There's a lot of things that the show could have done differently, and I'm sure they're probably happy that they did it the way they did. But when you do a show for the past 10 years, you kind of like need to figure out at some point, okay, where do I want these characters to end up at? And I feel like maybe that's what they didn't really think about before they started shooting or writing season 11. I feel like maybe they didn't really figure out the plot points that they wanted to come back to and finish on, because to me it kind of feels like an incomplete thing. It feels like this was the episode before the season finale, and that's what that's why I'm saying we need something else. We need something to wrap up everything. And yeah, I mean, we're probably not going to get anything else. I think that's probably it. And I doubt that there would be anything I doubt there would be anyone who would kind of pick it up again for another special or something. Maybe Showtime will give him like a half an hour slot, but who knows. Anyway, I guess that's it. I guess that's Shameless. Hopefully there will be something in the future, but if not, I guess that's it. And we should probably be happy that with Frank's storyline, kind of just focus on that and forget about the little details. But yeah, I think I'm probably just going to rewatch it from the beginning and cry.